Ignoring my brother Adrian's protests, I hurried upstairs. The old mansion groaned around me, each creak of the floorboards beneath my feet a ghostly whisper from the past. I felt like I was walking through a memory, one I wasn't sure I wanted to relive. At the very end of the long, shadowy hallway, I found it. The study door. It was coated in a thick layer of dust, a testament to how long it had remained untouched, sealed away since our mother's death. My hand trembled as I inserted the old, ornate key into the lock. It was colder than I expected. With a heavy, echoing click, the lock gave way. I pushed the door open, and a wave of familiar scents washed over me. The air was thick with the smell of old paper, leather-bound books, and the faint, lingering aroma of lavender, my mother's favorite. It was exactly as I remembered it. Books were stacked precariously high on every available surface, threatening to topple over. Papers were scattered across her grand mahogany desk, frozen in time, as if she had just stepped out for a moment. My eyes scanned the room, drinking in every detail. It was a sanctuary, a place of intellect and quiet contemplation. But as I moved closer to the desk, I noticed something odd. One of the drawers, the small one on the right, was locked. This was unusual. Mom was an open book, literally and figuratively. She rarely locked anything away. Curiosity, mixed with a growing sense of unease, took hold. Why was this one drawer different? I ran my fingers along the smooth, polished wood of the desk, searching. Adrian had been so adamant that I stay away from this room, and now I was starting to understand why. My search felt frantic, my heart pounding a nervous rhythm against my ribs. Then my fingers brushed against something Padro's. I ducked down, peering under the heavy desk. There, taped to the underside of the tabletop, was a small silver key. It was almost invisible in the dim light, clearly hidden with intention. With the key in hand, I unlocked the drawer. It slid open with a soft, almost mournful sound. Inside, nestled amongst some old pens and paperclips, was a single item, a leather-bound journal. It was her journal. My mother's. Her elegant, looping handwriting filled the pages. I hesitated for a moment, feeling like an intruder. This was her private world, her innermost thoughts, but something me too opened it I needed to know. I had to know what secrets this house and this family were hiding. I sat down in her worn leather chair and began to read. The first few entries were mundane, filled with notes about the garden, comments on books she was reading, and observations about the changing seasons. But as I flipped further, the tone, the neat, calm script became more hurried, more frantic. My blood started to run cold. There were entries about her fear. A deep, gnawing fear that seemed to permeate her life. She wrote about my father, not as the loving husband I remembered, but as a controlling, manipulative man. She described feeling trapped, suffocated by his expectations and his temper. The mansion, once her refuge, had become her prison. Then, the entries shifted to Adrian, my brother. She wrote about a darkness she saw in him, a chilling echo of our father's nature. She detailed his possessiveness, his rages, his unnerving ability to twist the truth. Adrian has inherited the darkness, she wrote. It scares me. I see his father in his eyes, and I don't know how to save him from it. Or how to save myself. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the journal steady. The words swam before my eyes, each one a dagger to my heart. And then I reached the final entry. The last words my mother ever wrote. The ink was smudged, as if from tears. It read, "If anything happens to me, it will be because of Adrian. He is becoming more unstable. I fear what he is capable of. Layla must know the truth. I pray she escapes this cycle of pain. I pray she finds a way to be free." A floorboard creaked behind me. The sound shattered the heavy silence of the room. I whipped around, my heart leaping into my throat. Adrian stood in the doorway. His eyes were not the warm, familiar eyes of the brother I once knew. They were hard, cold, and utterly empty. A chill snaked down my spine, colder than any draft in this ancient house. "So," he said, his voice quiet, almost a whisper, but it cut through the air like a razor. "You found it." My pulse was a frantic drum in my ears. I clutched the journal to my chest, its weight a terrible burden. "What did you do to her?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. "What did you do to our mother?" A smile spread across Adrian's face. It wasn't a real smile. It was slow, chilling, and devoid of any warmth. It was the smile of a predator. "I did what I had to," he said calmly. "For the inheritance. For this family's future." The confession hung in the air, thick and poisonous. I backed away, stumbling against the edge of the desk. "You killed her!" I choked out, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. The reality of it was a physical blow, knocking the wind out of me. "I freed her," he corrected, his voice taking on a righteous tone. "She was miserable, trapped. I freed her from a miserable life, and I was going to inherit everything. This house, the money, the legacy, it was all supposed to be mine. Until you showed up." His jaw tightened, the muscle twitching in his cheek. "You were never supposed to come back, Layla. You were supposed to stay away." He took a deliberate step toward me, and my survival instinct screamed. His calm demeanor was gone, replaced by a raw, unhinged fury. I had to get out. I had to escape. My mind raced, searching for a way out. With a surge of adrenaline, I darted Padros him, a desperate, clumsy movement. He was faster than I expected, his hand grabbing for my arm, his fingers brushing my sleeve. I sprinted down the hallway, my bare feet slapping against the cold wood. He was right behind me, his heavy footsteps echoing mine. The entire mansion seemed to come alive with the sound of our chase, the storm outside raging in perfect, violent harmony with the chaos erupting within. It was as if the house itself was screaming a warning. I reached the grand staircase, my hand on the smooth, polished banister for support, my lungs burning. "Stop!" Adrian's voice boomed from behind me, echoing through the cavernous foyer. "You can't have this house! It's mine!" It was always meant to be mine. I turned, my back pressed against the newel post, just as Adrian lunged. He was a blur of motion and rage. Acting on pure instinct, I sidestepped. It was a small movement, but it was enough. Adrian, propelled by his own momentum, missed his target. He missed the step. For a split second, he seemed to hang in midair, his eyes wide with shock, and then he tumbled. He fell down the long, winding staircase, his body a flailing mess of limbs. The sound was a sickening series of thuds, culminating in a final, definitive crack as he hit the marble floor below. And then, silence. A profound, absolute silence that was more terrifying than the chase itself. The storm outside seemed to die down tozija. I stood frozen at the top of the stairs, trembling uncontrollably, my gaze fixed on the unmoving figure of my brother, sprawled at the bottom. Moments later, the front door burst open and Mr. Calder, the family lawyer, rushed in, his face a mask of confusion and concern. He took in the scene, me, trembling at the top of the stairs, and Adrian, motionless on the floor. "What happened?" he gasped, his eyes wide with horror. I could only whisper, my voice shaking, hollowed out by shock. He tried to finish what he started. As the last rumbles of the storm faded into the distance, a strange calm settled over the house. The legacy of betrayal, the darkness that had haunted these walls for generations, had finally collapsed in on itself. And as I stood there, in the center of this ancient, silent estate, a single startling realization dawned on me. For the first time in my entire life, I was free. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more content just like this. See you in the next video.